Hi again to this webinar series. Something that we have seen in our interactions with most countries is a constant lack of users of the information. And we have been thinking of why is this? Is it lack of interest in this information? Or is it a lack of understanding of this information? So what we have found is that it's a myriad of situations that lead to this lack of users of fiscal information that can go from budget literacy to the way that the information is published as well, and lack of granularity as well. So here we have two experts on this matter. We're talking about educating about the budget. This specific episode is about digital tools and technology to inform and engage citizens in the budget process. These two experts that we have here are Lorena and Juan Manuel. They're both from Mexico. They're representing Lorena from one side. She's Director of Training for Public Servants in the Ministry of Finance. And Juan Manuel representing SocialTic and School of Data from a civil society point of view. This is a very interesting alliance that came up about 3 years ago, and they have been implementing a massive open online course on how to understand the budget. This is one of the experiences with most users and reaching a broader audience. So we would like, and we're very glad to have you here. Thank you for accepting our invitation. We are sure that these experiences that you have on this field will be very useful for all the community, because we see that a lot of our partners are starting this budget literacy efforts, and this is to give you all a head start on any effort that you would like to start. So I give the floor to you. I know you're very coordinated now, and you have a coordinated presentation, so I'll give the floor to you. I'll just mute my microphone and go back to the question.
Thank you, Lore, for the invitation. We have been trying a lot of efforts to training public servers, but also citizens about the budget, about the data and the transparency we need to improve to reach some goals as country. Understanding the Mexican budget, public spending through data, and it's the ultimate effort we did about how to vinculate data and transparency open to the citizens, because all our offer of training always was a focus to public service. This course was an amazing experience along the process to creation, but also the results has been very good. I think we didn't even know the impact and the results we have with it. We wanna share our experience through all the creation, but also what is our thoughts about the next step in this course. What motivated us to create this course? Well, the first thing was offer the tools to understand how government use public resources, but also can make a more stretch vincule with the society. So this course was our first tool to consolidate this relationship between society and government. Us as government, we are also society. So we try to involve all the citizens with this process we do every day in our jobs, but we know that it's important that everybody knows it. So encouraging these initiatives and these platforms, we try to facilitate all these tools for the rest of the citizens. And SocialTic was our very first allied. It was an amazing experience working with someone who is outside of the public service. So they can give you a different approach of the topics we can see every day. So for us, that was the approach we have to take to this course. Maybe this more friendly to the people. So together we create this course to make theoretical and technical very solid, but also very friendly and available to all the people. And that was the approach that SocialTic gave us. The method of implementation was online, of course, because our idea always was try to train most of the people. The platform we use is Mexico X, and this is another organization who is involved. The Ministry of Education has this platform, Mexico X, which is basically edX. They can give you the service for free. We can reach around 70,000 people in our first edition. Other thing we think is important is use all our resources to make the topic accessible to all the people. In our experience as trainers, we always think our publics are very heterogeneous. Also in public sector, not all the public servants are the same. We can reach people with PhD, but also we can reach people with zero college education. So we have to adjust our trainings on courses, everything to make it in citizen language, and also keep the very strict theoretical and practical that we qualify. So that was the very first thought to create this course. One was very easy to understand for the people, but also very strict on theoretical and practical tools we wanted to provide. To do this, we use different tools. We use webinars, we use some audiovisual material, but also we have a textbook which is a consult document you can use when you need to go deeper in some themes or go deeper in the exercise. But also the webinars make us feel more closer or more warm the course because the students have the opportunity to interact with the tutors. And the part a little bit harder, that is the part where most SocialTic helped us, was the introduction and the welcome to the data analysis in Excel. Why? Some people think everyone use Excel or knows how to use it, but in the real life there is a lot of people who need to understand these digital tools. Not everyone uses Excel, so this part was the most difficult for them. It was a very significant and important part of the course. The teamwork in the teams we wanted to touch in this course, because there is a lot to understand about budget. So we need to target what we wanted to the people understand. The citizens has to know the importance of public spending. The first thing we try to do is introduce the people who is not a public servant or is not in public service at any point to the importance of the role of the economy and our lives, basically, which is the role of the Minister of Finance, which is the role of the public spending in the goods and services they are having from the government. So in the first unit is exactly that. An introduction to public spending through theoretical framework, but also how to monitor it, evaluate, and accountability that the same public sector gives to the budget sector. And next unit was follow-up and evaluation of budgetary programs. At the time we assigned the budget, people think the money has been spent and anything gonna happen if in the government spend good the money or they are wasting the money. And what we wanted to give to the citizens is this knowledge of there is a system where we try to ordinate systematically the information, and that information is what we use to assign the budget in the next process of budgeting. So these two things are the main information we have to transmit to the citizens with this course. The theoretical framework and the follow-up and evaluation of budgetary programs is a more theoretical part of this course. The next two units of this course are transparency, accountability, and open data. And now in this part, we're going to practice what we do with that information and use it. What is transparency? Active, reactive, and proactive transparency. And then what is accountability? The vertical, horizontal, and diagonal accountability. Once the people understand these two terms, we do budgetary transparency open data, which is the part where SocialTic improves in this course because they are experts in the transparency and use the open data. They give us the input to create this part and make it more approachable with the people. We create activities when people use and practice all the tools of the first part was the introduction in Excel, and we use it to reinforce the knowledge they have acquired. In the next unit, and how to get information on public spending, a very easy trip around our platform, which have a lot of information like public budget, public works, government programs, local governments, and all this information there is in a format of open data, so they can use it and they know where they can find them anytime they need, not just in the course. The idea of this last part is exactly that. They don't need one of us, of the Minister of Finance, to get information. In Mexico, there is a system of information requirements. So a lot of people sometimes asks about some things that are public. What they want is public and they don't know. Give them that tools to know where is the information they require. Then there is no need to ask some public servant or some institution. They can use it and they can do whatever they want with the information and do some analysis, and they can share us with us. So this is the idea: make the people more independent in the use of the data, and also make the platform of transparency much more easy to navigate to the people. And our work for our third edition is to reach the results of first and second edition. In first edition, we have a lot of citizen participations. We reach a number of 70,000 people in our platform, and terminal efficiency of 70%. So this new edition that is coming maybe in September 2019, we are trying to reach the results of the first edition and try to get more participants. I think in this part of the next steps for this course is important to mention that in Mexico is through a process of change in public service. So the new administration and the new planning for government is going to significate for this course, make a third and very deep revision of the material and all of contents, not just change or replace activities, but also make them much more rich for the people, and they can find every time more and more information in those activities. There is also a very important thing to mention. A lot of people who doesn't know that Minister of Finance gives training and offer courses, now they know us, and they also ask for more courses like this and more even training or ask more questions to us, because they feel much more related with the Minister of Finance through these platforms and through these courses. In these 2 years, we have graduated more than 11,000 participants, and the first year, it was a success. The second year was for us even much more success, because was the double of participation of citizens. I hope this explanation of our experience as government to create this course give them other countries of other people who is interested in create something like this to do it and see that it's a very rewardable area.
How about your point of view, Juan?
Well, from the civil society and technological point of view, from SocialTic, we were very pleased to work in alliance with the Mexican government and the Ministry of Finance, especially in trying to add a very innovative and practical perspective on how to approach an online course as complex as this one. We basically encountered at the beginning jointly 3 big challenges. The first big challenge, as Lorena has already explained, was that participants not only don't know the basics on budget transparency, but also do not have the skills to address open data or data use in a basic manner. Sometimes they don't even manage well Excel use capacities personally. So there is a big challenge in how to build those capacities beyond also the focus on the transparency and budgeting concepts and theory that the course included. So we had to deal with that, both skill building challenge and also in a very complex scenario, which is basically the standard platform for this course, which is a massive online course. That led basically to try to deal with how to find a format that would be both practical but not exhausting for participants, which could actually leave the participants with the right amount of space and tasks so they could understand both the theory and the practical data use objectives, but could also have the time individually to run exercises and to had to make sense of the open data that the course was bringing to them in a new manner. And it's there in the open data portal, but on a practical term, so they can actually play with the numbers and the databases and arrive to conclusions in their own computer. And the last challenge we had was how to also inspire participants so they could not only understand the basics on fiscal transparency, also in data use and open data, but also continue working by themselves, since there was basically, due to the format, no personal coaching for each of the individuals, since we're talking about like thousands of participants. So what we did was basically to try to have a very mixed and flexible approach on how to build capacities on data use and the concepts of open data. There was, yes, some basic contents that explained open data and what was the relevance of open data in terms of like the practical approach of how to manage budget data on different contexts. And we ended up having basically a very introductory course that could actually force, in the best way possible, participants, before they took the course, to have a basic data literacy training, in a way, forcing them to have a self learning approach with already existing online material and resources, mostly from the School of Data resources that were published already online. Also, we try to approach that data concepts could be shown and be also accessed on demand, not only in the curricula, also the formal content on the course. There was a video that would introduce that. There was actually some practical exercises on that. And the most important thing that I think that we ended up innovating in a way was to try to link the topics of fiscal transparency with practical exercises that would, in a way, make the participants have a practical experience on the data related to the topics that they were addressing within the course. This was a big challenge because sometimes we ended up putting exercises that were a bit too difficult, in a data literacy level. Sometimes there was the challenge that sometimes the databases were too big. There was a lack of coaching, in a way, so that participants that would get stuck or do not understand how to use a tool, for example, Microsoft Excel or Open Office, would actually struggle with those exercises. So we ended up trying to and adapting to those challenges by having video tutorials that would show exactly how to do the exercises and give very practical tips, not only the tools, but only on how to manage the data. And one of the things that was a very interesting insight from this experience was that besides addressing the practical exercises on data use with exactly the concepts that were being addressed on the curricula, very practical and very personal approaches on how to use data were actually recorded on video. Yeah, in this screen we have a list of on-the-demand video tutorials that were done. They were basically data basics on how to use spreadsheets. So there was a guided video tutorial on how to use pivot tables, how to format cells, how to use conditional formatting, how to even download, export, and start working with a CSV file, which were identified as the basic skill challenges that many of the participants had, especially in the first edition of the online course and in the beginning of the course. Another interesting thing was that as we identified with the team of educators that were managing the course, what were the topics or the exercise the students were struggling with, there we recorded several video tutorials that address basically in a question and answer format how to deal with those challenges so they could replicate the exercise or actually get their questions the most solved. Since it being an online course with thousands of participants, it was impossible to have individual follow-up on those challenges. Many of the things that we learned here was that this basic capacity building approach on data use can be possible if there is an effort to bring the resources and to get people and participants involved in data building capacities, both before the course, during the course, and leave as many simple and also advanced resources for those participants that would like to make future or more advanced exercises or analysis from their side in a personal or professional scenario. One of the lessons that we will try to bring to different and next courses would be to have like a broader range of introductory assessments and exercises before the MOOC starts. And also for those participants, which are a minority that might have much of sophisticated data literacy skills, probably identify certain challenges or exercises that could be in their level and could have a much more inspiring and challenging approach to analyzing budgets, especially, and to use the open budget platforms that are available already there.
I have so many questions that I know people would like you to address. And we can be very concrete so that people get, the ones who are watching, get very good answers to the questions we tend to get around this topic. So what we see here is a mix. We can't say it's just a budget literacy effort. It's a mix between data literacy and budget literacy, in a mix again between government and civil society, which I think is very interesting. But tell me something, Lorena and Juan Manuel, how big is your team, each of your teams?
Our team is about 5 people. 3 of them, including me, we are in the process of to do the activities to make these revisions, and the other 2 people is in the part of giving the participants this close relationship with phone calls and all the follow-up of the course, the monitoring these doubts. So there is a lot of work, but the team is very good.
And Juan Manuel from SocialTic.
In SocialTic, at the whole organization, we're 7, and the data program has 2 full-time staff involved.
Okay, so I just want people to dimension this, because people ask us a lot about us thinking if the in-person training is important. And the answer is usually yes, we think it's very important, but how other way would you have reached more than 30,000 people, for what I heard? So I just want to make clear how, although in-person training is very important, this is a way in which you can reach a broader audience, a lot bigger than you would have usually thought possible. Do you agree with us? What do you think about this?
Yes, in our experience as trainers, we love to train people face to face, but also there is this impossibility of resources and time to train this massive quantity of people. And tools like, in our case, Mexico X or edX as platform to train people, give us the opportunity to increase our audience to all kind of people that maybe we can get to them in any other way.
From our point of view, I mean, we've been always trying to adapt ourselves to different learning contexts and platforms. And I think that, yes, the only way to reach out so many people, it's not only the massive online platform itself, but also trying to make that, in our case, the alliance with government, because sometimes from civil society or from a technological point of view, it's very difficult to have a broader exposure and to have a platform as big as the one that, in this case, the Mexican government has had. And if we would try to do the same thing by yourselves, probably we hadn't reached as many people as possible. And the most important thing right now is not only the platform, but the challenges that adapting effective in such a complex course to an online, massive online platform actually implied, and how we ended up just balancing different challenges and try to experiment different approaches to reach those very complex objectives.
You had it as well, very complex. I have to ask some uncomfortable question, probably. But Lorena said that the course didn't cost 1 peso. I know that it cost part of the team and time from the government, but how did civil society manage with these conditions to make this happen?
Well, the biggest objective was to reach out and to have the course at the beginning being built and having thousands of people to do it. So we actually ended up having that pro bono project. And we always try, and that's basically a civil society part of our nature, try to be as cost effective as possible. So many of the contents we had already been working either on other formats, such as in-person trainings or different tutorials, and we had only to adapt them. So it was not as time consume as possible. And we have to admit that some of these courses, sometimes the biggest challenge is, first of all, intellectually to sit and to take the time and to discuss the different curriculums and approaches and design the exercises, which we did gladly and with very integrated teams, multidisciplinary teams with the Ministry of Finance. And the other was to actually do all the production that has to do with content production. And that was basically done by the Mexican government with its already built-in capacities and actually costs. So the key here was to diversify and actually those costs. So it ended up being as cost effective as possible, and to use already the platforms and the capacities that both the Mexican government and civil society has. From our side, I mean, all the efforts that lots of people have been putting into resources and knowledge sharing in an open format in the School of Data and Escuela de Datos actually has made many things as cost effective and very valuable.
So it was about also aligning this course with your already existing streams of work. And this course actually might have helped with your objectives, your already existing objectives. And Lorena, Juan Manuel just mentioned something about the production. The production was very important. So can you tell us how did that happen regarding all these videos and design of the documents and so forth?
Well, as I mentioned, our team is very small. So Juan Manuel say that we use all the areas of the government with some of them are specialized, I know, in production or publishing media content. So we found in this course also a source of alliances around all the government. I mean, we're trying to contact social communication in other parts of the Ministry of Finance. We contact another directions inside of the ministry and also the other institutions, Ministry of Education. So they help us. All of them were part of the effort.
And that is great, because that gives us a very good idea of when you want things to happen, it is possible to find a way. Lorena has been saying that her team is small. I just want to make it very clear that they don't just train for fiscal transparency. She said it in the beginning. It's for training of public servants on performance evaluation. But they were very keen on approaching a broader community. So they still do the in-person training and online training for civil servants at the same time. It's not just 5 people for this type of course. I just want to make that very clear as well. Just one very important thing is you both mentioned the exercises, and you emphasized a lot, Juan Manuel, in the end, on the type of changes that you made on the exercise. But can you describe how these exercises look like? One of these very practical exercises that you mentioned.
The exercise basically, I mean, we try to achieve like 2 aspects that were very important. First of all, that the exercises was basically using the real data from the open data portal, the open budget portal, and The second one was that it was linked directly with the objectives of each of the activities in the contents of the course. So sometimes we only, from a technological aspect, we want to build only the data literacy capacities. And we have like the best or the example on how to, for example, clean databases or filter databases or or use pivot tables and spreadsheets. But we try to identify exactly which of the budget data could be in practice a very good exercise to learn how to use each of the skills that we were trying to build in terms of data use, but also it made sense with the content that the students were actually reading about and hearing about and researching about regarding data transparency. So that was like the biggest challenge sometimes, how to build those things. And the second thing we learned basically on the implementation was that sometimes we actually were not very effective at addressing the type of database, the complexity of the database with the data literacy skills that most of the students had. So we try to keep it as simple as possible, but still having a learning experience, even though it was very sometimes basic.
I think Lorena has something to say about the complexity of the database that was chosen for one of the exercises.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, the first edition was our experiment, so there was areas of opportunity. So the second edition, we tried to change some of the basis of the open data we use it in these exercises. So we have a little problem because that information was too heavy or was too big to the serve in Minister of Finance. So we have some problems. And now in the downloads, we are trying for make this process of download much more easy and without problems or inconvenience like in the second edition. So we're gonna adapt that revision of the exercises, but also which bases or which data we are using for the people download and make them more short or easy to in terms of downloading.
That is one of the challenges, and you have mentioned many challenges, but this course has a very high termination rate. So how did you manage that to happen after all this?
It's a challenge to manage a more higher efficiency in the next course. So we're going to replicate the first and the second edition strategy, and that strategy is give all the participants personal assistance via email, via phone, and if they need them in some exercise and in some topics of the course, more webinars. And what we have learned along all those two editions and other courses online is that people, when they feel they are close to the tutors and when are close to the people who developed the course, in this case us, Juan Manuel and my team, our team, they feel motivated, devoted to the course because they feel what we wanted to inspire them.
And Juan Manuel, have you bumped into any organization that has used the skill sets that they gained from the course in some other work that you're doing?
Well, we have to say that it sometimes with massive online courses, it's very hard to follow up on individuals because it's impossible to actually have a personal relationship with thousands of people. What has happened since the first two editions is that especially some civil society organizations, some journalists, but mostly civil and public servants that took the course are showing up to different either open government, open data, data literacy courses or events. And they actually mentioned that they took the course or they learned their initial skills having it to do with fiscal transparency or data literacy there. And they're still working around those topics and getting better and doing much more interesting projects. In very few cases, in comparison to the thousands of people that took the course, we've had like individuals reaching out and asking questions and looking to see where they could use different resources and continue learning. Yes, but with, the lesson there is that human approach that Lorena actually focused on does continue in outside the course institutionally, both civil society and with the Ministry of Finance, in which people can actually reach out and ask for help, even though the course has already finished, and also participate and do much more interesting things in their projects or in their personal or academic life afterwards also.
I think that is one of the most interesting things because it doesn't end with the course. As Lorena said, the objective, it's not a high efficiency rate. It's how people can actually use this afterwards. And I want to go to one final question that can be quite delicate. In many countries that are having elections now and the political matters are something to take into account. The forums in the course are open. How did you manage in the forums not to get political?
We don't have a policy about that topic particularly, and along this training, a lot of topics are very political. That budget, that is political. But what we're going to do, because I think in this particular year can be a little bit delicate, as you say, Lore, is going to try to direction these forums, not just the political part, but the theoretical part and the practice part of the use of data. I mean, give them this idea that no matter what's happening politically, there is things like the theoretical framework and there is things like the use and the strict analysis of data that they want to change. So we are trying to do forums focused in those topics.
I think that is a very important issue to manage. And I think that trying to keep this course objective into the things as they are and not mixing, I think it's something to learn from as well and something to consider because many countries are waiting to start this type of processes of budget literacy or interacting more with the people because of electoral processes or political processes. So if you have the openness to do something like this, it is possible to manage still in this hard political time. Juan Manuel, if you have any other clarification that you would like or to do about this?
I mean, one of the big challenges, especially in Latin American context, in which we like to debate about everything, is how to focus on exactly building skills that might be very small, but are useful to continue that learning process. No? So that was a big challenge. And sometimes we have to face reality from, like, first of all, the design perspective and then the practical perspective. And this online course has brought many practical lessons that we are always just bringing out and sharing with different allies and try to incorporate with other kinds of mixtures that approach public policy, understanding and training, but also all the data and literacy that comes within that.
And I think one of the key results of that is that we're having a course for 2019 after a new administration is coming. So that is very good news and we'd like to hear from Gift because that is our continuation of these policies that we see as very beneficial for public participation and fiscal transparency. I want to thank you a lot for your time. I think this is going to be very useful for those who want ideas and insights on how to manage all these complicated issues. And I just want to thank you again for this.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.